Hi, my name is Joshua Coleman, and today we will be discussing 3 scanning tools that can be used to discover vulnerabilities on a network or device and the different scans available in each tool. Nicto is an open-source GPL web server scanner that scans vulnerabilities against web servers from malevolent files and programs and checks for misconfigurations and outdated web servers. It also checks for server configuration errors and any possible vulnerabilities they might have introduced. Compared to OWASP Zap, Nicto only scans for vulnerabilities in web servers and files on these servers. This command here, Nicto switch H, scans for vulnerabilities against web servers for different types of items, dangerous files, and programs. OWASP Zap, one of the most popular free web security tools, actively maintained by a dedicated international team of volunteers. It intercepts proxies and executes active and passive scanners like brute force and port scans. Compared to Nicto, OWASP Zap scans web requests, obtains links and URLs from the sites, captures data, and decides how the application will respond to malevolent requests and aids developers, pen testers, and sec testers in identification of vulnerabilities and flaws. Cross-site request forgery, or CSRF, and cross-site scripting, XSS. CSRF is an attack that forces end users to execute unsolicited actions via web applications. This can be accomplished by deploying social engineering attacks to mislead users into performing these changes in which they're currently authenticated. XSS is an attack that injects malevolent scripts into trust sites and sends this browser-side script to end users. The end user then executes the script due to low browser detection of the injection. This enables the script access to cookies, session tokens, and other personal data. Nessus is a web-based application that scans for security vulnerabilities in devices, other applications, operating systems, and cloud service providers. It utilizes a variety of plugins compiled into a single tool to increase its scanning performance and mitigate the time needed to assess each vulnerability. Once a vulnerability has been identified, an alert is sent to the IT teams charged with executing the next steps. The screenshot here represents the number of vulnerabilities that were scanned, ranging from critical to info. Now, this tab right here only says 19, but that's because once it's clicked, it will give you more data on the vulnerabilities that have been found once you've opened up the vulnerabilities tab and see the compiled listing of everything. These two are the first vulnerabilities that I discovered, one being PHP 4.4.2, multiple XSS, and web application potentiality, or potentially vulnerable to clickjacking. The clickjacking vulnerability details there is no X-frame option response header in each content response, basically meaning there is no security measure in place to protect the link from being modified or used by threat actors. This vulnerability, followed by another 6 vulnerabilities with PHP, I found them to all be similar because they all have an outdated or non-supported version of PHP. The solutions given are to update to the newest versions. The HTTP trace vulnerability details that tracing is enabled. I do not think this is supposed to be actively enabled, but rather triggered by authorized personnel. The solution recommended is to turn off the HTTP method specific to this action. The web directory vulnerability details the possibility of the Active Directory being enabled and at risk of data leakage. The solution is to monitor the directory or to disable the indexing action to the directory. These are the last 2 remaining PHP vulnerabilities. From my flaw hypothesis methodology, I hypothesize if a network or device is being used without keeping up to date or patching the software, then attackers have favorable opportunities to hack and exploit that network or device. To get a better understanding of the vulnerabilities active on the target IP, I ran an advanced scan and it provided more information like SSL, IETF, and SSH, unlike the basic scan which only gave mixed information about PHP and HTTP specific vulnerabilities. This also had a high range of critical to information, with these vulnerabilities being critical, high, and medium. Implementation of vulnerability tools. I would use these tools for vulnerability scans on a case-by-case basis. For example, attack discovery for attack vectors, or host discovery, credential validation, and credential patch audit for host-related issues and flaws, as they will yield more information than basic scans. To attempt to trace the vulnerability to the root, it is recommended to follow these steps. Number 1, understanding the issues and being able to articulate them. acquiring the opinions of all the stakeholders involved, understanding the differences between the normal elements and what causes root issues, and conducting trial and error to determine the issues at the root level. To give an example to follow along with, looking at the data provided in the vulnerability scan, I understood one of the issues was the lack of up-to-date software. I tried updating the PHP software, but am unsure on how to access it. I opted to update the entire system to combat the issue as seen in screenshot number 2. For the attacked vectors, I hypothesize that weak credentials, misconfiguration, or ransomware would be heavily effective against out-of-date software due to a lack of security to safeguard the data. Weak credentials would be easy to obtain because, without current software, there's also the possibility that there will be no update your emails being sent from IT. This means staff would not remember to change their passwords, leaving devices an easy target. The same to some degree can be said if utilizing misconfiguration or ransomware. According to the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, researchers are not allowed to give any details pertaining to vulnerabilities in any capacity until there is a fix, until it is repeatedly tested, and you can't do so without authorization from the AOUSC IT Security Office. I think this is being implemented to mitigate any unnecessary actions from the government, from the public's perspective, and the organizations involved. I believe too many opinions and too many different types of actions taken without the proper guidance and a resolution can create and will continue to fan the flames of consistent chaos. This vulnerability is PHP 5.3.12, which is a CGI query string code execution. I chose this one because I believe this vulnerability came to be just like the other PHP vulnerabilities due to the software not being current. The scan details the current version of PHP being an older version than the recommendations of 5.312 and 5.4.2. This enabled the software to become a target for data leaks and compromise. To conclude, all three scanning tools, Nikto, OWASP, and Nessus, provide valuable data and details about vulnerabilities. Though they have similarities, their actual functions depend on the overall need. The biggest difference I have noticed in my personal use is that Nikto is the fastest for basic scans, and if you want more in-depth information, I would use OWASP, even though it would cost a small bit more of your time. Nessus, though it demands at least 4 to 5 times more time, has such a higher payoff that it is worth the investment because you get extremely accurate and invaluable information that the issues seem to basically become easy to solve once you've obtained the information. I think these tools will be useful because a clue leading in the right direction will be obtained regardless of what scanning tool you choose and regardless of what scanning option within those scanning tools is available.